Can you hear me now? What's famous for
Test.
it? Can you hear me now?
Test.
Well, maybe I'll just speak louder. We need to adopt the agenda. I need a motion to do that.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the agenda.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We got a 2-minute overview. 2 minutes. Dr. Matt.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to be very quick. Is this one? Mr. Welch, members of the board, and Ms. Kaiser. The school board budget request is for a total budget amount of $12,702,097. Of that amount, the county portion would remain at level funding for $9,139,098, with the division slated to receive approximately $187,000 additional allocations from federal and state sources as compared to the previous year. These additional monies are due to a decrease in the local composite index. The division usually receives monies for supplemental basic aid as part of the General Assembly Appropriations Act of 2007. These monies are in part due to having less than 1,100 students and an agreement with the lower LCI division for sharing of services. The division does not receive these funds if the basic aid calculation is higher than the cap. The cap in 2007 legislation was set at $1,129,280. This lack of supplemental funding was recognized after we began building the budget after the governor's introduced 16-18 biennial budget calculations were made public. Therefore, the additional monies the division is receiving from the decreased LCI only somewhat balance the monies the division will not receive in supplemental basic aid. With this being said, the school board was able to present a level county-funded budget to the Board of Supervisors. However, the advertised Rappahannock County budget shows a decrease to the division's requested budget by approximately $50,000. Although this proposed decrease sounds small in terms of a $12 million budget, the impact of programs and staffing is inevitable. With 3 years of decreasing line items, the proposed school budget was developed as a budget of need. A budget in which $20,000 in maintenance and $43,000 in transportation line items were already cut in preparation of the fiscal year 17 budget. Money spent on education is an investment. I'd like to share with each of you some of the academic highlights our schools, our teachers, and our students have accomplished. Our division motto is to lead, to inspire, and to grow. These are ways in which this county school system has led, has inspired others, and are continually growing. For academics, SOL's 2013 through 2015 full accreditation each year. In fact, this past year we were one of only 37 schools out of 132 divisions that were recognized for full accreditation. We have no priority and no focus schools. Those are the lowest performing schools in the state of Virginia. We've had 86 perfect scores from students on state assessment tests. 10 teachers have had 100% pass rates on their SOLs. Skills USA of competition, we've had a state champion in prepared speech. The National Latin exam, 22 cum laude recipients, 29 magna cum laude, 17 maxima cum laude, 2 summa cum laude. And the National Classical Etymology exam, we've had 8 gold, 19 silver, 23 bronze. The Virginia Economics and Finance Governor's Challenge competition, we've had 4 students out of 3,350 to compete in the state of Virginia to qualify for the state championship. Girls State, we've had 2 students selected. Building trades, all 13 students in the Energy Power class have earned the prestigious OSHA 10 card award. National Spanish exam, 8 gold medals, 5 silver, 2 bronze, 7 honorable mentions, and 1 first in the state. Battle of the Books and 24 math tournament. The Rappahannock County Elementary School has consistently placed in the top 5 over the past 3 years, and we've always competed with 4A and 5A schools. Post-RCHS graduation accomplishments. Last year's graduating class, 79% of which went into 4-year, 2-year, or technical trade schools. Rappahannock County High School grads of 2015 were accepted to outstanding colleges to include such as William and Mary, Fordham, James Madison, UVA, Virginia Tech, Penn State, just to name a few. Our concert band received excellent ratings in 2016, 2015 superior, 2014 excellent. Our marching band, 2015 superior, 2014 excellent. In addition, they received superior ratings in concert and jazz ensembles that were held at DC and New York City, both for 2014 and 2015. The Scholastic Bowl, conference and regional champs in 2013 through 2016. State champs in 2014 through 2015. Third place finished in 2016 of its academic. 3 Coach of the Year awards. In theater, conference champs 2013 through 2015. Region champs 2015. 8 honorable mention outstanding actor awards, 4 top actor awards, 2 Coach of the Year awards. In the science fair, we've had 6 regional winners. Farm to Table, we were recognized in the Virginia Living magazine. Green School Challenge, the VSBA honored us with a silver certification for green schools. Academic Consortium, we've incorporated with the Worlds of Work, the WOW event, which we share with each of you for college and career planning. CTE College Fairs, we implemented those and we've had them 2 years running. The community service, our National Honor Society and our Leo Club members have each performed at least 20 hours of community service annually, and most of those students have exceeded 50 hours. Our Service Learning Club and our Transition Clubs, they typically perform 10 or more hours of community service per week. All of this would not be possible without wonderful, experienced teachers, staff, and administrators, as well as supportive parents. As we continue to lead, to inspire, and most importantly, to continue growing our youth for a lifetime of success, I want to thank each of the members of the Board of Supervisors for their financial support and the Rappahannock County School Board for ensuring excellent educational services for our students of Rappahannock County Public Schools. I respectfully request full funding of the fiscal year 17 school division budget. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the overview from Ms. Deborah Kaiser for the county budget.
For the county budget, there have been 3 budget workshop meetings held, with another one scheduled at the next board meeting, which will be on May 2nd. Workshops consisted of the constitutional officers and the department managers getting together to review their budgets line by line for the Board of Supervisors with justification for increases and decreases. This was found to be a very helpful process and will likely be continued for each year forward. To balance the budget, significant cuts were made, over $500,000, and a summary of the budget changes is available on board docs for your review. May 2nd will be the next Board of Supervisors meeting. At that point, we will be discussing health care contribution for employees and a 2% salary increase, which may be mandated by the state if the funding is approved. That may not be known until July 1st, but we'll discuss it should that happen to be approved. Percentages of expenses within the budget. In summary, the school budget is 48%. The Sheriff's Department is 9% of the budget. Comprehensive Services and Welfare Administration, both under Social Services, are 6% and 4% of the budget respectively. The Regional Jail is 3% of the budget, and the majority of the county offices are within 1% of the budget and a few at 2% of the budget. Tax levels will remain the same for 2017 fiscal year as it was in the fiscal year 2016, except for a $5 increase in the motor vehicle license. Public comments will be accepted by citizens until May 2nd for the school board budget, when the Board of Supervisors are scheduled to adopt the budget. So if you have further comments then tonight, or know someone that couldn't be here that would like to make comments, we'll be accepting them through May 2nd. They'll be posted on board docs, and you should send them to my email address at dakaiser@rappahannockcountyva.gov. May 23rd will be the Board of Supervisors public hearing for the closing of the county budget. It is our goal to accept the county budget on June 6th at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And again, emails and comments from the public will be accepted through June 6th. Thank you.
Takes us up section, the first item would be the school budget. Anyone care to or willing to speak will be able to. When recognized, please state your name, your district, direct your comments to the board, and try to limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. I had 3 to 4, but I see that's not working too well, so 3 to 5. And direct your comments to the school budget. So I declare it open. Anyone wishing to speak? If you want to come up to the microphone, go ahead and line up, and we won't have to keep waiting.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Swindler. I'm a resident of the Stonewall Hawthorne District, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the school's request for level funding from this board in reference to the 2016-17 budget. Before I speak, I wish to express my thanks to the members of this board and our school board for their service. I know that yours is all too often a thankless job, and I want you to know how much I and many others appreciate your efforts on behalf of all the citizens of Rappahannock County. Thank you all for your service to our county. You've heard about some of the positives that our schools and students have managed to accomplish over the past several years in which our requested budget was fully funded. While I am the current facilities director for the school system, I was the athletic director for 4 years up until this past July, and I'd like to share with you some of the athletic accomplishments earned by our teams and athletes over the past 2 to 3 years in which we were operating with a fully funded budget. Our varsity teams, we've had 4 teams that have won conference championships, 8 teams that have been conference runner-up. 3 teams have won regional championships, 3 teams have been regional runner-up. 1 team has been to regional quarterfinals, 2 teams have been to regional semifinals. 4 teams have been state runner-up. 3 invitational tournament championships have been won by RAP varsity teams. Our individual athletes, we've had 18 athletes named to first team all-district, 14 to second team all-district, 28 to first team all-conference, 12 to second team all-conference, 20 to first team all-region, 5 to second team all-region, 22 to first team all-state, 2 to second team all-state. We've had 14 individual state champions over the past 3 years, 4 individual state runner-ups. We've had 5 district players or runners of the year. We've had 5 conference runners of the year. We've had 4 regional runners of the year. And perhaps most importantly, in the past 3 years, over 100 Rappahannock County athletes have been named to the all-academic conference teams, maintaining a GPA of 3.4 or better while playing a varsity sport. Varsity coaches, we've had over a dozen coaches win Coach of the Year awards in both district, conference, and region. Our junior varsity teams have no playoffs or postseason accolades, but I know that we've had at least 3 teams that have finished their season at the top of the JV standings. And our junior Panther teams, which compete in the middle school conference, have won over 30 middle school regular season and tournament championships in the past 3 years. I'm hopeful that these accomplishments can be continued, and I'm certain that fully funding the school budget will help in that regard. Turning to facilities, I'd just like to point out a few items from our current and planned budget. The proposed budget for the schools includes a total of just over $250,000 for facilities, divided into 4 categories of maintenance service for buildings, maintenance service for grounds, contracted services for water and sewer, and contracted services for equipment. This amount matches almost to the dollar the amount we budgeted for facilities last year. A couple of notes on that. Of the approximately $250,000 budgeted for facilities, $72,000 is dedicated strictly to water and sewer areas, specifically the maintenance of our public water supply and our 2 sewer plants. So in essence, we are maintaining 2 schools of about 80,000 square feet each, plus a school board office and bus garage of about 6,000 square feet for approximately $175,000 a year. That works out to about $1 per year per square foot in annual maintenance, which is actually a little less than the latest industry standards for schools. I will note with thanks that the county does pay approximately $25,000 a year for the preventive maintenance work on our HVAC systems. But I will also note that our maintenance budget has to pay for the repairs on all of our HVAC systems, all of our electrical and plumbing repairs, floor and carpet needs, roofing needs, fire alarms, PA systems, and all the other things that are involved in maintaining the physical plan of schools. And these are not static buildings, lightly used with just a few people. Our buildings, as you must know, are heavily used by hundreds of people, most of them children, almost every single day. Doors are opened and closed, mostly left open, incessantly. Toilets are flushed multiple times per minute. Floors are scuffed, carpet is worn, walls are dinged and scratched. All of the wear and tear you would expect in a busy school. My second point is as follows. I can't help but to compare the amount that our schools spend on building maintenance to what the county spends on its building maintenance. We spend, as I've noted, approximately $175,000 a year to keep our buildings and grounds maintained in the face of fairly heavy use. We do our best to scrimp and save so that we can get extra projects, such as the upcoming window replacement projects, done at no additional cost to the county. The county, according to the budget ad in the paper, spends just over $350,000 for maintenance for buildings and grounds. And that number is a reduction from last year's amount of just over $432,000. I am not begrudging the county spending on its maintenance of its buildings and grounds, and nor am I in any way criticizing the amount of money spent on that category. I don't pretend for a moment to know what the county's buildings and grounds needs are. I can say it seems to me that they are being kept in pretty good shape, and as a county resident, I think that's great. But I would point out, by comparison, that when it comes to maintenance, it seems that the schools are taking care of quite a bit more for quite a bit less. It's my hope that we're not faced with taking care of our properties with even less than the last couple of years, which could be the case if our level funded budget request is not granted. So again, I'm asking you, my Board of Supervisors, to support our level funding request to allow our schools to continue with the great work we've accomplished thus far. I thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts, and I sincerely thank you all again for your service to our county.
Good evening, board members. My name is Dot Lassard, Piedmont District. As a member of the Board of Directors of the Headwaters Educational Foundation, I'm representing the response of the Headwaters to the Rappahannock County Public Schools budget of 2016-2017. Headwaters' mission is to foster educational excellence by cultivating the cooperative spirit and resources of the whole community to benefit all students. As guided by that purpose, we are pleased to support the following 4 initiatives included in the proposed budget. Number 1, 4 additional appointments to the Mountain Vista Governor's School, which provide exceptional opportunities to exceptional Rappahannock County students. Number 2, dual enrollment classes in mathematics and psychology, which offer high-achieving students opportunities for an advanced curriculum and college credit. Number 3, an after-school choral music program which introduces the opportunity for the study of choral music by high school students. We are pleased to partner with the school system to take the first steps toward a formal choral program with courses at the high school level. Number 4, professional development that supports the integration of technology such as Google Docs, classrooms. We look forward to continuing to support the integration of technology into instruction, as our Educational Enrichment Grant Program did last fall with the purchase of Google Chromebooks. Our county students must understand this academic use of technology, which is common across the nation in secondary schools and universities. We consider all 4 of these initiatives, which represent educational excellence, appropriate for the use of county funds, and we look forward to seeing these 4 initiatives in the final adopted budget for 2016-2017. We do not support a reduction in the proposed school board budget or flat funding. If the county needs to reduce expenditures to balance the budget, we would like to see those reductions coming solely from the county line items rather than from reducing services for the children in our school system. Thank you very much for considering this.
Sard. I'm a resident of Rappahannock County's Piedmont District. I am up here to support the school board's budget. Last year, my wife, through our involvement with Headwaters, we met Dr. Matthews and Jimmy Swindler, and I volunteered to provide architectural and construction management services to the school board. Last year, we were able to do the entrance to the elementary school. I'm hoping that they were able to do the entrance to the high school at some point. But through that, we met with various organizations in terms of people that I know, and we had talked about doing these school windows over. If you've ever been over at the elementary school, the windows almost are unclosable. And we talked about starting to figure out a way to, instead of going out to a contractor saying to Jimmy, why don't you be the construction manager? And we are able to do that, and that's one of the reasons why these windows that we're talking about in the budget right now, I think will be able to be done, and at a price that's far less than would have been done if we went out to bid to general contractors, which we're able to do. So I'm here to support the budget. I'm here to support Headwaters, and I hope you all are here to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
Ron Madlin from the Jackson District. Basically, I'd like to speak about the construction projects, end of the year money, and basically the past, and sort of tie it into the future. Being a former school board member, I'm aware of the process of particularly the end of the year money and how that money is spent. And in the past, it has been a process where the board came together when I was on the board, and we did things that were, it had been done for years basically. Filling gas tanks, doing small, not really projects, but just doing things that would save the money, or save the county and the school money in the upcoming year by spending it now. What I've seen in the last few years is a process where at the end of the year there is money left over, and there is suddenly an urge to jump into a lot of capital projects which we've never done in the past. Capital projects, construction projects, or whatever, require planning, administration, research or whatever, and this seems to be going away. And I'll go back to basically last year when the parking lots were paved, and that project, from the information that I've been able to receive, started in August of 2014. There are emails, meetings, or whatever, where there was planning going on for end of the year money in August, just coming into a new budget to pay those parking lots. Bids were requested in August, they were received in October, and then they were sort of put on the table. But the money, to me, seemed to sort of be, based on those bids, sort of to be allocated at that point in time in a budget that it was never talked about in this situation where the budget was being looked at and approved. So I have a concern there, and in those areas, you need to understand that in 2014, at the budget payout meeting, which is at the end of June, there was almost $500,000 left over in the instructional category for the school system. And they had some problems that year, particularly in vehicle maintenance and whatever, which took up some of that money. But in going to the website and trying to find out where that $500,000 went to, it's not spelled out in the budget, or not in the budget, but in the minutes for the budget payout meeting and whatever. In 2014, they turned back into the county a little over $10,000. But there is nothing in the public documents that I can read that explains where all that money went to. And I know some of it went, I mean, of that money, some of it is allocated towards salaries that are paid on a 12-month basis, whatever. But there was $500,000 there, and there is no public record of how that money at that payout meeting was allocated out so that they could come down to $10,000 to give the county back. In the past, when I was on the board and before and after, if there was chunks of money left over, I mean significant chunks or whatever, they would do the traditional purchases of fuel and various things that you could do in a limited time. And then the rest of the money was turned over to you, the Board of Supervisors, to put back into the general fund, but normally with the idea that if something came up that needed funding or whatever, that money was sort of in a savings account. And they were not just $10,000. There was $50,000, $70,000, or whatever. I mean, they were fairly significant amounts of money. What we're seeing now is very small amounts of money being given back to you, but very rushed construction projects that are being instituted at the end of the year in order to use up this money, which is sort of a federal mindset. And that in the federal government, they've got this thing about, you know, use it or lose it. And, you know, that's the way they work. But that's not the way we need to work. I'm a taxpayer. Taxpayers in the audience, we give you the money. We ask you to allocate it out to various areas, but we ask you to keep an eye on it. And when it seems to me now, it's going to the school board and you're losing control. In that at the end of the year, they could have a significant amount of money. And in fact, the last figures I saw, which were April 7th, I believe it was, for the financial report, that in the instructional area for the school board budget, there's over $3 million left over with about 6 weeks left to go. It was out of $7 million or whatever. There's $3 million left for 4 more weeks. If you're going to pass this budget, obviously, or some semblance of this budget, but what I'm going to ask you to do, and I think it's going to be to the benefit of the county, because we're looking at on the county as a whole, some significant expenditures down the road. We've got fire and rescue issues, we've got building maintenance issues with county buildings that have to be dealt with. At the end of the budget year, if there's money left over in the school board account, a significant amount, you need to be part of that process to decide where that money goes. It may be better spent, not at that point in time, not for the school system, but for other areas of the county, and that's going to benefit the taxpayers as a whole. So basically what I'm getting up here and asking you tonight is you have an option when you pass the budget to pass it as a whole or to pass it by category. To pass it by category would put you at the table at the end of the year. So if there's money left over in the school budget, that you have a say in perhaps where that money goes, I believe that's going to be beneficial to all the taxpayers and everyone in the county. They had an opportunity. That money is supposed to be spent on kids, basically, throughout the school year. If it hasn't been spent on the kids at that point in time, then I think we need 10 people at the table, not 5, to say, let's look at this funding, and let's see what's going to be the best use of that funding that's left over is going to benefit all of the taxpayers in Rappahannock County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Does anyone else care to speak? I declare the public comment section closed. Next public comment section is the county budget. I don't know if we have to go through the statement. I think everyone understands. So I'll declare the county budget public comment section open. Anybody want to make a comment about the county budget? Yes.
My name is from the Jackson District. Before I start, I want to give a little context of where I'm coming from. Right? You need to understand. I'm third generation in this county, even though I'd probably be considered to come here. My great aunt bought that property long before the first power line even went through. I plan on staying here the rest of my life. I have in my living trust that property will stay in the family for 30 years, and that's funded after I die. So I got a big stake in this county, and I love it. So I'm passionate about where this county is and preserving it the way it is. All right. Second, I have over 3 decades of experience in government program management, execution and oversight, formulation, including budget, building anywhere from $2 million to a $6 billion aircraft carrier. So I understand how this process works. So please, and through that process, I just want you to know, I have had a number of people removed from and programs cut off when I worked both at DOD and at Homeland Security. So I know what bad programs look like, all right? So I am passionate about getting value for the consumer, or for the taxpayer. It irks me that I am so passionate when I don't think the tax dollars are being properly taken care of. So I just wanted to understand where I'm coming from, and now I'll start my comments. My comments on the proposed budget are from 3 perspectives: big picture, methodology, and specific line items. From the big picture perspective, you are dealing with $32.6 million of our hard-earned tax dollars. I know there is some debate about that number, but I've included all revenue, whether or not they are controlled in special funds or not. Right? The real estate tax rate is 36th highest out of the 95 Virginia counties. The personal property tax rate is the 20th highest in the 95 Virginia counties. When you factor in real estate values in the county, there are only 7 counties that have a higher median property tax burden in all of Virginia. So you do not have a revenue problem, yet you are increasing the motor vehicle license tax by 25%. In regards to services provided, the county schools rank 88 in the top 100 of the Virginia public school system. This came from the #2 Google hit. I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's wrong. All right, but the point, I'm not arguing. But the point is, it's out there public. If someone's looking for a house, that's what they're going to get on the #2 Google hit. All right. Despite per pupil, the county gives the 6th highest of all counties in Virginia in terms of the amount of money. That's because you probably get anything from the state. All right. And you're the 7th highest in total spending per pupil. Right? The average teacher salary is $51,600. That came from the Virginia website, right? Versus the average for the state, which is $53,800. So you're not even paying the average salary on teachers. I couldn't find the average deputy salary, but I heard it is well below the state average of $47,600. And I also heard that there's one deputy whose new insurance premium is 60% of their take-home pay. Really? Do you expect that person to live on 40% of their take-home pay? Right? And the fire and EMS aren't even covering all of the operational expenses allowed under the fire levy bills. You are providing below average essential services at substantially above average costs. So added to the high real estate costs, no wonder we don't have young families moving to the county and our school enrollment continues to decline. Gentlemen, you have a spending problem. More specifically, a spending priority problem. Now let me address the methodology issues. This is where my experience comes in. There are a number of standard budgeting processes that you aren't using. Why don't you have expenditures at the line item level? Look at what the expenditure information you do have. Of the 12 accounts with less, there are 12 accounts with less than 50% expended, only 2 months left in the year, and one account 125% expended. Furthermore, the monthly expenditure report you receive only shows a total budget of $10.5 million. Wait a second, was it 32.6, 22.3, or 10.5? Right? Last year, you had to take out a loan to be cash flow. You must have visibility of expenditures at the line item level. Otherwise, you aren't managing, right? Why don't you have a glossary of line items? Other than the county administrator and the treasurer, it is difficult at best for even a long-term member of the board to know what all these line items are, more or less a citizen. Each line item should have a brief description and each account should have a summary for transparency. Why don't you have metrics to measure the quality of service provided? You have no way to determine if you are providing value to the taxpayer. You hear nice anecdotal stories and testimonials at board meetings, but you have little or no empirical measures. That goes back to the quality of service you are providing. How could you ever justify a tax increase to someone like me who's going to say, what am I getting it for? Because you don't even know what you're providing now, really. So why don't you provide an explanation of the changes by line item, as done in the school budget presentation? Let's at least get to that level, right? Every line, they do an explanation as to why you have it. Yours didn't have it. I'm sure some of the issues I'll raise later have rational explanations, right? But how did I know by looking at it, right? Why don't you provide a method of prioritization of the budget items? You need a breakout of line items as to whether they are overhead, essential service, important function, or nice to have. You have overhead buried throughout various line items. It is impossible with the information provided to calculate an overhead rate. But from my experience, you're probably well over 20% or $6 million of your budget is overhead. This goes back to the issue of providing value to the taxpayer. Why don't you have a 3 to 5 year projection? We all know you have some long-term issues to solve. Ron just mentioned the fire and EMS that will have to be accomplished under a number of years. For example, even if the fire and EMS strategic plan action items had been completed, costs identified, and schedules developed, how would you have reflected your long-term financial commitment to that plan? Finally, I'd like to address specific budget line items. Why is the county attorney getting a 28% raise and no one else is? Based on what I've seen, you are getting questionable advice, as evidenced by the last Board of Supervisors meeting. It also is not a full-time job. How many hours were spent by the attorney on the dark skies issues before the board even discussed the issue? This is another increase in overhead costs. And to pay for this, you are cutting the social services legal support. While you are projecting a 445% increase in foster care, a 76.5% increase in mandated children, and 53.8% in welfare administration. And this year, you already have a 25% overrun in welfare administration. What is causing such large increases in these accounts And why isn't it likely you need more legal support, not less? The fire and EMS costs are not fully funded. The last fire levy board approved operational expenses when extrapolated to a full year of $570,000 and apparatus replacement expense of $165,000. Yet you've only budgeted $455 and change and $60,000 respectively. The fire levy and EMS recovery revenues are adequate to cover the actual expenses as well as the insurance. Why are you not allocating adequate resources? Your budget should reflect the actual expenses expected rather than expecting the volunteer companies to make up the funding gap. Keep in mind, you have two companies whose bank balance hovers around $10,000. It is unreasonable to expect them to subsidize your budget. I applaud establishing a contingency fund, but you need to take it from the general fund, not the fire services fund. A couple small little items. Why have water and sewer increased 92%, and why has trash increased 275%? Gentlemen, we elected you to be good stewards of our tax dollars. In my opinion, sorry to say, you have failed. I apologize for being harsh, but the numbers speak for themselves. You need to fix the methodology problems mentioned above, cut overhead costs, increase funding to essential services, and eliminate the nice-to-haves. And it needs to be done in this budget. Thank you very much.
Anyone else care to speak? Anyone else care to speak? Declare the second closed. Okay, do we have any comments from the board?
Well, I do have a few comments. I have to agree with Mr. Glenny on quite a bit of what he said. I have sore toes, but I have to agree with quite a bit of what he said. This is the first budget that we've worked on in years to this extent. We hardly know for any time. That's why it's got us. I'm sorry. I say the Board of Supervisors has not put very much work in the last couple of years on the budget, and that's why it's gotten this bad. We put in quite a bit of time this year on it for us. I don't know how it compares to other county boards. I've been opposed to that county attorney increase. We, as a board, we have no idea what he works on generally or how many hours he spends at it. As a matter of fact, what happened on the April 4th meeting, none of us saw that coming unless, well, we had, at least the chairman said he hadn't seen it before. I didn't know that the would have been posted on board docs was even there until I was notified by the community. So we've not been doing our job, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry from my perspective. We've not been doing our job.
Mr. Chairman, I think I can echo sentiments of some in the community that this board probably hasn't done as fine a job as it was elected to do with respect to going through this budget in the detail that it has. And it's my first budget process, and I want to say that I think this board has gone further than a lot of its predecessors to correct that. I see line-by-line review here, and we've been led in this effort by the Treasurer's Office, by the Deputy County Administrator's Office. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to them because we wouldn't even be at this point of taking the kind of criticism that we're taking if we hadn't gone as far as we have so far. I kind of look at this as an effort of this is a year where we're crawling because we've had to crawl out of a hole. We haven't had a balanced budget for I don't know how many years. You can kind of blame it on cash flow, but I think you can also blame it on the fact that revenues weren't equaling expenditures. And now, in 1 year, you're going to have that without a tax increase as it's proposed today. I think that's a pretty darn good start considering where this budget process was last year and the year before that. We have 3 people that work in the Treasurer's office. We aren't the Department of Defense. We are not the Department of Homeland Security. We don't have the staff on board to do the kind of analysis that might be suggested, at least this year. We got to get to a certain baseline before we can even begin to go through those. We've gone through it line by line, but to go through those descriptions and talk about overhead, I agree. I think that's commendatory. I think that's what the federal government should do, make sure their dollars are spent well, but we've got to remember, we're not the federal government here. And we've got a lot of people that are doing the best that they can with what they have, and I would hope that the citizens would applaud the fact that they're not getting a tax increase this year, they're getting a balanced budget, and there's been a lot of effort put forward. Can we do better? Absolutely. Will we do better? We'll try going forward, but I think what's happened so far here is a big step in the right direction. So I appreciate the ideas about how to get better. I sincerely do. But I don't want to make perfect the enemy of good. And I think we've done a good job this year with it. I agree it hasn't been perfect. You know where I came from the school board. It's hard for me to ask the schools not to fully fund their budget and that they have a $50,000 shortage based on less revenue than they had to work with last year. I hear the comments about, hey, what about all this money that seems to appear at the end of the year? I think the way things are set up now is that maybe there's a feeling that you have to rush to spend money as opposed to, well, what happens to it if after July 1st? Maybe there's a way of assuring the schools that if they do save any money at the end of the year, some of that money could get carried over into a new budget year. And maybe that's the way the $50,000 shortfall gets addressed. If they're prudent and they spend their money wisely, and I think that they do, then maybe that's where that money is. Short of that, I think we have a week to find where we might be able to level fund, where we might be able to come up with it. Haven't done it yet, but might be able to. I do think $50,000 is a little bit of a hit for the schools to take. It would be good if this board was to take another look at it and see if they can't find at least some of that money. But short of that, perhaps there's a way, if they have the money at the end of the year, that they'd be able to put that toward what they think they need it for, to the tune of $50,000. And I'm not sure how that happens. I'm not sure what the vehicle is for that, but that's just a broad idea. I am vehemently opposed to categorical budgeting. I think it violates the trust that this board has with the school board, and I think the time now is to make sure that this budget is as tight as it is, because when we give it to the schools, we entrust them to spend it well, and that's why we have a school board, and that's why the school board hires the superintendent. If the school board doesn't do a good job in spending that money, they get voted out, and if the superintendent doesn't do a fine job of being a steward of the taxpayer money, then he or she loses their job. And I think that's the check and balance that we have to have in that situation. But we tried categorical, if I remember. This board did a number of years ago, and I believe it was a failure. So I think we have to have a level of trust with our money that as it goes, appropriates from us to the schools, that they're going to spend it wisely. I think those are the two broad points that I took away and wanted to make. And I think there were some good ideas expressed out there, and I appreciate those that stood up and pointed out how they think we could be doing things better, because we can always be doing things better.
If I could make some comments, not a rebuttal, but in historical context, the reason that the category
can't hear you, Mr.
I'm
Frazier.
sorry, this board a number of years ago did do a categorical approval, and the reason that it failed or became a fiasco is because 3 members of this board made it a fiasco. So, it's a long story, but it could have worked, and it should have worked. But board members are not perfect, and board members have to do their homework, and that's why it failed. Now, the thing about returning money to the schools, I don't know of any time that this board didn't return that money for some school process, because in the spirit of former longtime supervisor Chairman Estes, the money that is allocated for the schools, the county citizens have been taxed for that money, and when the money has gone to the schools and been returned to the county, we've always said that money would be returned to the schools in some way for capital expense or something. Maybe we haven't done that. I can't remember. I'm open to a memory lesson here. I don't remember ever doing that. So it's not that if there's a trust issue, it wasn't on this board's side. It happened somewhere else somewhere in the process. But we, to my knowledge, never taken that money and not returned it for school reasons.
I just want to thank Donna, the school board, and all the members of the school, the teachers, the employees. I think they do an excellent job with our children. Donna pointed out, and also Mr. Swindler, what great accomplishments our students have accomplished. And for a small county, small school, we do a great job. Some of the expenses that make it look like we're out of balance is because we are a small school. It costs, the economy of scale doesn't work for us here. So it's going to cost us more to operate a small school and smaller number of students. That's something we have to live with. And I thank Glenn and anybody who points out where we need to make improvements in creating the county budget or how we run this county. We appreciate all the input we can get, pointing out our shortfalls and even praising our accomplishments. We are human. And I think this year we've gone through the budget closer than we've ever done before. We've had a little bit better tools with Debbie Nix and the treasurer office being able to create closer line-by-line items that how we're spending that money. And we've gone through the budget looking at those figures and have made adjustments, and we were able to shoot for not an increase in our taxes, and that's what we've done here. But also, like Glenn has pointed out, we have more room to make improvements. Thank you.
I don't think there's a lot that I could say to disagree with what's already been said. I think Mr. Frazier is right. We have not been as diligent as we should be when it came to the county budget, and in the last year, we've tried to fix that. Quite remarkable. We never have, as Mike said, turned down any assistance or knowledge from people that can help us get to where we need to be. Mr. Brennan, I think you're going to be on the list now, volunteer list, to help us out. I mean, you read all those
Worth my tax dollars.
Pardon?
My rate is so good, it's worth the tax dollars.
Thank you. If just half of those statistics that you read out were accurate, we're in trouble. But we can get out of trouble by the hard work, and that's the way we've always done it. You know, I don't know how many people realize this, but you're sitting in a gymnasium. That's what it was when I went to school here. And look at this, nice auditorium, we've got good facilities in the school now. We have to keep working for that. They don't come easy.